Now, youth crime is a problem, of course, right around the country, but it's out of control in Townsville, as we talked about last night with David Crisafulli. Specialist police now have been sent to the city after youths went on a rampage again over the weekend. Here's how 7 News Queensland reported it.
Less than 24 hours after 3 police cars were rammed, another attack.
We've been rammed on the rear.
Received. So just reconfirming high speed at approximately 130 kilometres from the rear.
Yeah, that's correct.
The scenes in Townsville were not only terrifying, they were completely unacceptable. We will be relentless in pursuing these children.
Who knows what's next?
Unreal, isn't it? I followed up with the local federal MP and Shadow Assistant Defence Minister, Phil Thompson.
Mate, Townsville's under siege. We're under siege by youth criminals who are attacking businesses, breaking into people's homes, and now they're ramming police cars. They don't fear law enforcement and they don't fear the punishment that should follow. And people of Townsville have had enough. We've been living with this fear of the youth crime for many, many years. And, you know, we want answers and we're demanding answers. And it's fallen on deaf ears, and now with the changing of Premier, we're hoping that this new Premier has a focus, but being the Deputy, I don't think it will. And, you know, people feel like prisoners in their own home. Every day someone's car's been stolen. Every day there's a youth criminal breaking into someone's place. This isn't good enough, and we don't want to be living like this. And to be frank, mate, we want our city back.
Yeah, the extraordinary thing, Phil, is, as you mentioned, you've been putting up with this for years, and we've been talking to you and others about it for well over a year on this program. It's a problem that's so obvious, and governments, police, local government, people are saying they're paying attention to it, trying to fix it, but they've made no progress. I mean, what needs to happen?
Well, I think that the police do a fantastic job. Their hands are tied with weak legislation and laws passed by weak politicians. We rallied hard and we got breach of bail to become an offence, but that doesn't work if you still have detention must be a last resort in the Youth Justice Act. We think at a bare minimum that should be stripped. Take that out so then that people can actually be do time for the crimes that they commit. You need to have a real detention, not in the holiday camp that you'd call Cleveland Youth Detention Centre. You've got to punish bad behaviour, and it's simply not happening because the police will arrest them, they'll go to court, they'll be released, and they'll go back out and committing crimes again. They don't fear where they're going, and they don't get punished for their bad behaviour. Therefore, the cycle and the merry-go-round continues.
Do you have any statistics? Do we know just how many of these people are reoffenders? How many are being arrested for one crime when they've already been dealt with on a previous one?
We've seen previously to the spike just over the last couple of days that we have a lot of reoffenders. We have a lot of youth criminals that are continued to reoffend. But this weekend alone, just gone, that I spoke to a police officer and he said, out of the last 10 years, this is the worst it's ever been. Cars being stolen, people being threatened, violent carjackings, violent home invasions, all done by youth criminals. And the Queensland state government hasn't acted, and it looks that like they won't act into the future either. And people are leaving Townsville because they don't feel safe. People don't want to be driving on the road after a certain period of time. People are worried about their kids' safety. And these are all real fears, as well as small business owners that have been targeted. We need action. We don't want to hear any more roundtables. We don't want to see any more talk fests. We need a state government that's actually going to listen to the community that they're supposed to serve.
Yeah, Phil, you mentioned Townsville, a city under siege. It's certainly been the epicentre of these problems, but they have spread. The youth crime problem has spread right across Queensland, even into Brisbane, of course. So would you say that when Stephen Miles is sworn in as Premier, probably on Friday or early next week, that this must be the #1 priority, restoring law and order in the state?
For any state government, and especially in Queensland, the #1 priority should be keeping their community safe and should be youth justice reform. And I don't think that Stephen Miles has the gumption to do it. Otherwise, he would have stood up the last however long he's been the Deputy Premier and done it. So I know it's spread around different parts of Queensland and the country, but Townsville is the largest city, the furthest away from a capital city. So we feel it a lot more here as well. And we want action, and we don't want wishy-washy answers. We don't want people to tell us that the laws are tough in Queensland, because if they were so tough, then these young youth criminals would be in jail.
Now, your leader, Peter Dutton, also a Queenslander, of course, he says that Stephen Miles is fully owned by the union movement in Queensland. Your thoughts?
Oh, definitely. I couldn't agree more with Peter. He's owned by the union. He's got a little wet handshake. He's not very strong on any policies. He's just a puppet that would be led around by the puppeteers in the movement. I wouldn't be surprised if we see nothing change, and just a continual dismal failure that we've seen from the previous Premier. And even today, you would have seen on TV that they brushed over the cyclone that's hitting far north Queensland and then wanted to talk about themselves. That's all they really care about. And if you really cared about the safety and security of Queensland and Townsville, then you'd be doing youth justice reform, not talking about who wants to be leader and who's going to be in charge. I think that they're more concerned about themselves than they are the people.
Well, we'll keep in touch with you, Phil, over these issues. But if we don't talk to you next week, have a good Christmas and New Year, and we'll catch up in 2024.
You too, mate. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, he's a good man, isn't he, Phil Thompson? We'll keep an eye on what's happening in Townsville and Queensland, obviously, throughout next year.